everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is our honor to welcome you all to the fifth webinar of Decentralized Learning series. Today, we will discuss the new generation of social media platforms, focusing on the role of information trustworthiness and decentralization. Without any further delay, I'm passing the floor to the moderator, Professor Sula Gao. Sula?
Thank you, Ilya. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are in the world. Welcome all to today's webinar on user-oriented, secure, trustful, and decentralized social media. Fake news is not a new phenomenon. Occurrences of fake news have been reported from the pre-printing era. With the rise of digital media, the spread of the news, whether fake or not, is done at an accelerated rate. The information era has converted our traditional societies into digital, resulting in an exponential increase at the rate at which fake news is propagated. Results may be devastated, ranging from simply destroying trust to ruining businesses and even people's lives. Technology does not only enable the wild spread of fake news, but also it provides innovative ways to produce false content, including text, images, and videos, with the intent to deceive people, leveraging techniques from machine learning and artificial intelligence in order to manipulate and generate audio and visual content. But technology is not inherently bad. And in this case, the same technologies provide us with potential solutions to the spread of fake news. Confirming information, credibility, and reliability is indeed a vital security requirement for social network platforms. Due to its immutability, security, tamper-proof, and P2P design, blockchain becomes a powerful tool that is capable of providing potential solutions to overcome this challenge. Today, we have the pleasure to have with us three distinguished guests. Penelope Trulinu, research analyst at Trilateral Research. Soreen Adam-Matei, Associate Dean of Research and Graduate Education at Purdue University. And Nelson Escravana, Director of Cybersecurity and member of the board of Innov. All three of them with different backgrounds to complement the various angles of dialogue that such an interdisciplinary topic requires. I will now give the floor to our panelists to ask them to say a few words on their work. So I will start with Penelope. Ladies first.
Thank you, Sula. Hello, everyone. It's incredible being here among all of you from so many different spots in the world. So thank you very much for the introduction and for the warm welcome. I'm Penelope Trulinu. As Sula said, I'm a research analyst at Trilateral Research. It's a UK and Ireland-based SME. We provide regulatory and policy advice. We develop new data-driven technologies for social issues, and we contribute to the latest standards in safeguarding privacy, ethics, and human rights within the public and private sector. So my work focuses on the intersection of technology and society, including privacy, social, and ethical impact assessment of digital technologies. I have a multidisciplinary background. I obtained my PhD on surveillance studies from the Open University in the UK, addressing the subjective experience of everyday surveillance. I hold a BA in philosophy and social studies and an MA in bioethics from the University of Crete, and a second MA in communication studies from the University of Leeds. In UNAMIA project, I'm leading the work on human and societal factors of misinformation, as well as of the technological tools developed in the project based on co-design methodologies. Furthermore, we are conducting a privacy and ethical impact assessment supporting compliance with GDPR, but mainly with the ethical and societal values of the European community.
Thank you, Penelope. And I'm glad you have already mentioned Eunomia, because we will also be discussing that as an example of a decentralized social platform. Thank you. And Nelson?
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you are. So my name is Nelson Scrivana. I'm the head of communication and cybersecurity unit at Innov. Innov is a private non-for-profit research and technology transfer organization. My background is computer science and management. I've been working in the last couple of years on intrusion detection systems and cryptographic protocols, including in the fields of e-voting and authentication. And I'm also participating in this project that Penelope has referred, called Eunomia, where Innov is providing a solution for distributed storage and distributed communications and voting.
Thank you, Nelson. And Sorin? You're muted, Sorin.
Yes, thank you, everybody, for making time to join us today. 174 attendees. That's a whole lot of people from all over the world, I see. I'm a professor of communication. I got my PhD in the social scientific research of communication technologies from University of Southern California, one of the initial nodes of the internet, by the way. And I teach at Purdue University. This is one of the so-called Big Ten public universities in the United States. We have about 40,000 students. Our most distinguished alumnus is Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, as the last man on the moon, Eugene Cernan. We are a large university interested in the connection between social issues and technology. And on the Eunomia project, I've been working with just about everybody as a roving ambassador of the idea that our technology needs to move people ever so slightly toward trust. And we'll talk a little bit about this.
Thank you, Sorin. And I will start with my first question now. Why, in terms of content, information, trustworthiness matters, and decentralization in terms of governance is also needed? And Sorin, may I continue with you?
Yeah, sure. This is a topic that I keep thinking about over and over, in the sense that I'm also a historian by first training. And what we see today is a proliferation of information, first and foremost. Before the information becomes bad, we need to acknowledge that there's more of it. And there's more of it because we have opened another set of floodgates for producing more information by more people. And this is not the first time in the history of humanity that this happened. The print revolution was just as controversial and consequential in the sense that what took years, if not decades, to reproduce by hand, all of a sudden became possible at great speed. And although you might have heard that the first bestseller was the Bible, actually very few people know that immediately after the Bible, people started printing out pamphlets. Actually, very often they were just one-pagers, sheets, and posters, on which they would publish the most incredible stories and the most scurrilous stories, impugning everybody's character. If you read some of the pamphlets that Luther put out during the Reformation, your hand will stand up. So we are going through a crisis of trust because we have more information and more people speaking about more things. And the big question here is, what should we do? Should we put a cap on it, or should we work with people to help themselves understand where this information comes from and then sort it out? And I think that our project, the way I see it, is trying to move us in that direction. in the sense that we need to trust people, but at the same time, we need to give them the tools they need to surveil and understand who's doing what. And the decentralized information infrastructure that we're trying to offer does that first and foremost. We have adopted decentralized information infrastructures, not because they are cool, but because they help us achieve what we wanted to achieve, which is to give people a means and a method to verify and trust the information. We'll talk some more about it. I'll stop here.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to add anything else on that?
Well, I can, so if I may.
Oh, please, Nelson, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start with the word trust. We usually see the word trust as something good, something that, and it's actually something that we need for the society to work, for us to use technology, for us to interact with media, and reminding that I'm coming from a cybersecurity background. So I'm looking at it from the cybersecurity perspective, and actually trust is the root of the problems we have in security, because you only have security problems when you trust something, and that something that you trust is not working as you are expected. You were expected it to work. So trust can be good and could be bad. And one of the problems is people understand what to trust. In what technology should they trust? In what company should they trust? In what person should they trust? Let's look at a very actual, a very current case, that is the vaccination campaigns. Now we have rumors of one of the vaccines not working as intended, so people are starting to not trusting it. And you could go to a friend of yours, someone with a MD, and ask him if you should take the vaccine, if it is safe, if it is secure, and you'll have one opinion, but you would have to trust that person. If he's wrong, then you'll be in harm's way. So you could also go to a company and to a panel of people and ask them to study the subject, and you have to trust that company. You need to know what's their stakes in the issue you are asking. So what is actually their motivation, if they are good enough, and you have to trust that group. We are actually trusting the regulators. In the EU, we are trusting the EU regulators for health. We are trusting the member state regulators. We are even trusting the WHO. So putting this on the media side and the news and social media, we are trusting companies, usually private companies, that they will handle our information correctly, that their technology is good, and that the people that use that technology behave well in a way to provide us the right information. And that's a lot of trust to put in something. Decentralization is what we do when we cannot trust someone specific. So if we cannot trust a company, if we cannot trust one single person, we try to spread that trust among a group. And as long as that group is mostly honest, it works. So decentralization in social media, I think it's not only a solution for the trustworthiness problem that we have today, it's actually the future, because all the social media is about decentralization. In this case, decentralization of opinions, decentralization of information sources. So we are basically moving forward in that decentralization and stop trusting only one company, to trust a set of individuals spread around the world that will give us their opinions. And then we have to make our decisions based on those facts. So I think trust is a very, very important issue. And there is good trust and bad trust. And good trust is the one that gives you the opportunity to take good decisions based on data. And the bad trust is when you trust something, and even there are indicators that you should not or that is something wrong, you still keep on trusting it. So it's a very interesting topic, and decentralization on social media, I think it's unstoppable already.
Thank you, Nelson. What about in terms of the governance part and decentralization?
Before we go on that, Sula, can I just add something on what Nelson was saying and Soreen? So yeah, I think that first of all, social media, the internet has made the phenomenon that Soreen described before, even has amplified this phenomenon. Because nowadays the information is produced in incredible speed, and it's transferred and it travels in incredible speed as well. There are no boundaries anymore. There are no physical boundaries anymore. So of course, these characteristics can bring positive changes, because as you have said in your introduction, Sula, technology is not just bad, you know, like information that travels and trustworthy information that travels can bring positive changes in the society. I mean, I don't know how if the audience is too young or not, but you know, in 2010s we have the Arab Spring example, for example, that show the impact of social media in real life. So we have social media give voices to more vulnerable and underrepresented groups of societies to bring forward their truth, their information, to say their stories. However, as Soreen was saying, now there is no prior checking. It's not the journalists who produce the information. They're not checked by their editor. There's no prior checking. But if there is, it's this problem that that Nelson brought up. It's controlled by corporate entities, and it's control even more so by automatic algorithms. So we have the algorithms that come in and they judge whether we can trust something or not, whether we can are exposed to information or not. And this is why I think it's related to your question about the governance in that sense. So as Soreen said, as Nelson said, we have the very recent example of the spread of false information around the origins, the transmission, the cure, the treatment of coronavirus. And this has cost lives, as you mentioned earlier. So, but social media do support the spread of misinformation, not only because it's a platform that invites the users to share everything they believe and they think, and they share information that we don't know if it's trustworthy, but also because the algorithms themselves reinforce existing bias, promoting on the newsfeed information of like-minded people, creating filter bubbles. So in that sense, the diversity of information on social media is very low, exposing users to the same information over and over again. So if we are exposed to misinformation, for example, we are in a trap. It's not very easy to get out of that and be exposed to alternative version of the story as well. So it's not like anymore that we go to somebody to ask for their opinion. We don't go to somebody that is an expert on something. We are bombarded also by information that, as I said before, it also reinforces our own bias, and we are not often aware about that. So the information trustworthiness is crucial. If we can recognize what information we can trust, for example, we can have the ability to act upon it. So to slow down the spread of misinformation, and I think that I will partly go into your next question, because I think that is very important. It's equally important in terms of trustworthiness to move to platforms that support trustworthiness in its essence, and they come to address other pathogenies that we can see now on social media, like censorship, privacy, etc. So in that sense, to me, decentralized systems that are based on open source software, they can play a key role as they allow users to assess the code and the data in a network. They give more control and autonomy to the user, and they promote transparency. So in that sense, trust is moved towards the community, like it's more spread, as Nelson said. Users can flag potential attack or any malicious activity of the system, and they protect their network. So users can moderate the information themselves, and they get the power from corporate entities that control the majority of online platforms, and they define the content of information and the distribution of information in that sense. And this is a case of governance.
Thank you, Penelope. A very complete answer. Thank you so much. I will continue with my next question, which is also related to the first. So based on these considerations in regards to the information trustworthiness and decentralization, can you briefly mention the key technologies that enable these properties? And also considering the disruptive character of blockchain in the new digital era, what is their role in this framework that we are looking at? Nelson?
Yeah, thank you.
Our technology person here.
Thank you. One of the key technologies is open source social media platforms. So when we get out of the mainstream corporate social media, then we can actually decentralize because there is no good reason for a corporate social media platform to be decentralized, because it's managed and it's governed by a single entity. When we go into open source social media platforms, and mainly decentralized and federated platforms such as Mastodon, we are escaping from the control of the technology providers that currently dominate the social media landscape. Other important technology, because we are talking about highly distributed, which comes with decentralized nature of systems, it's peer-to-peer communication networks, and that allow us to exchange information without having a central hub where all the information goes to. So we need that type of technology. But we also need something we can trust for authentication. We need something that we can trust to keep the integrity of the information, to check the integrity of the information, to enforce governance principles, and to protect the data that is stored on all these platforms. And for that, blockchain plays a central role, because blockchain is like an entity where you can trust, but in its nature, it's decentralized. So you're not trusting a single entity, you are trusting a quorum of entities that are mostly well-behaved. So I think blockchain plays a very important role on assuring that these decentralized platforms like peer-to-peer networks, and we have peer-to-peer networks for a long time already, store data in a way that can be used for social media, keeping its confidentiality, privacy, integrity, etc. So I think that's the key role of blockchain on this field.
Meanwhile, I see here also the questions that we are getting through, and one of the questions that I see is I believe related to what you have been talking also about now, Nelson. Sophronis from Minnesota. He's interested to find out what methods can be used to guarantee that a news piece is truthful. Is it based on a consensus among news sources? How do we know that those sources are not biased?
Okay, that's a very good question, Sola. I think if we put that at the hands of technology, we are jumping from a bad scenario into another bad scenario. because technology is also developed by people. And like Penelope was referring, if we put that in the hands of an AI algorithm, it can be biased, either because it was trained with only a subset of the actual landscape of possible data, or because it was on purpose biased by design. So I don't think we can do that only with technology. What technology can do is provide people ways to verify information. So we'll provide people ways to check where that information was already published, what were the comments, and let people decide for themselves. So we can provide indicators of trustworthiness and let people decide for themselves instead of saying something is trustworthiness or not. We should not let, in my opinion, we should not let technology to decide what is trustworthiness. It should always be our final decision. We should give information to the user so we can decide.
Thank you, Nelson. Anybody else would like to add anything else on this before I move on to my next one?
Just one.
Just two.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
Penelope. No, go. Sorry, I will go after you. Don't worry.
Just two quick thoughts here. One relates to the nature of trust. What is trust? Especially when it comes to turning it into a tool, into a technological tool. So we need to take trust to be a first cut, a first attempt to see if something is worth what it seems to be or not. Very often we talk about trust as if it were the same thing as truth. You know, we can trust many things that are untrustful, and not because we are mean or because people are trying to deceive us, but just because we're equally ignorant, both the ones who look and the ones who sell it. So, there are always trade-offs involved in trust. So as builders, because we're talking to builders, I suppose, or people who are interested in exploiting technologies, as builders and exploiters of technology, building a trust mechanism always needs to take into account the fact that whatever, is seen as trustworthy, it only has a degree of trustworthiness. That's one thing. The second thing I wanted to mention is related to this matter of, what is real? What is, what's a piece of real news? And here again, I would like to forewarn everybody who is in this business that trying to design the perfect mechanism could be deceiving yourselves and deceiving others, because it is given in the nature of the human mind, right, to see things different, for each person to see things differently. So, the best way you can ensure that something is, as close as possible to what really happened, the representation of something is as close as possible to what really happened, is to have multiple perspectives. And it is actually a good idea to have conflicting perspectives so that you can see the things that one side doesn't see. And here, I'm really anxious that we are going in this direction of creating all these tools, the fact-checking this and a provenance that seems to have all answers for all people. And here I would like us to pull back and again trust people to be partial in a way, because by comparing the partiality of the camps looking at the problem, we might get a better idea of what's going on.
Thank you, Sorin.
Actually, I just want to echo what Sorin said, that we often misread, and there is this confusion between trust and truth, and this is not the same thing. Trust and truth are two completely different things. I think that we all have biases, and we cannot not have biases. So I think that what Sorin said is very important. We need to recognize our biases, and we need to recognize the biases of the source that provides us with information, or the algorithm that is supporting tools that support us to trust online information. To paraphrase a well-known phrase, that the truth lies in the eyes of the beholder. So we always need to bear that in mind, and when we judge, when we assess online information, we always need to have in mind that there are our biases and the biases of the means and the biases of the sender. So we need to be more critically engaged on the consumption and the production of information.
Thank you, Penelope. And I will move to my next question. What are some of the societal dimensions that should be taken into account during the design and the operation of decentralized social media platforms? And I think, Penelope, here we're continuing with you and Serene.
Yes, this is a great question, and I have enjoyed our discussions on that with the consortium of Eunomia. The vision around the decentralized media networks reminds me of the original idea of the web. I think Sorin, as a strange historian, will help me here. It's this utopian future we envision to ensure users' privacy, to provide them total control over their personal data. It's like a network where it will be moderated based solely on users' votes, and there will be no single authority to make changes. The trust will be placed to the community. However, we have seen that this promising idea of the web turned into a nightmare, and we need to take these lessons on board when we develop these decentralized networks. So how I'm going to pose questions as a philosopher and sociologist. How can the design and operation of decentralized social media platforms ensure freedom of expression, while at the same time they protect the users from damaging the content, from damaging content, how they promise security, advanced security and privacy, and users can create accounts without providing personal data and without this being linked to real identity. However, I think that new security threats might arise in this new era in social media. For example, managing public keys, for example, is not simple for the average users. Developing actually software that provides this security, cryptographic security, and make it also easy for the average user is very difficult thing. So this can already pose dangers on the security, but it also means that this vision of decentralized social media is also based on the technological capacity of the users. So if not everyone has these skills, then these networks might end again in the hands of the few. Of course, this can raise issues of discrimination and inequality that we need to take on board and we need to address. Of course, we need to recognize that the barrier of this technological division is much lower than the existing one. But I see that there is already, I can call it a software-based hierarchy, let's say. Even though the code is open, still there are few people that have the ability to understand how the code works. Of course, there is a better review auditing. Even if we don't know who the developer is, there is certainly their reputation, or there are other developers that can scrutinize the code. So, I do believe that the vulnerability to misuse remains lower in that sense. But another problem that I see is what happens with the user's data in the case that the decentralized social networks shut down. For example, if there are technical problems, if there are lack of funds, because technological systems do not come for free. So they can be very costly. So this can create issues on who can create them, who can sustain them, who can maintain them, but also the people or the organization who will have those capacities. How will the monetization be addressed? Will it raise new issues. So in a sense, I think that decentralized social networks can face societal issues also similar to the ones of democracy. In decentralized networks, the majority always wins. But does this mean that the majority is always right? Does the majority has the same values? Or can the majority be gamed, can be tricked? It's again the trust that Nelson explained so nicely before. If we do not know who are the people in the community or who has the server, how can we trust them? How can we ensure transparency? How can we ensure accountability? And as I mentioned, I think security for me it's also, you know, there might be new issues and on that I want Nelson's opinion. So how do we ensure that the people are not controlled? Of course, it's more difficult because as Nelson said before, it's more decentralized, more spread. So it's more difficult to be controlled. But if we don't have enough technologically developed members of this community, is this danger more possible? So for me, we need a new trust model, a model that ensures transparency, that ensures accountability, without, of course, revealing the identity of the users and safeguarding privacy.
Thank you, Penelope. Anybody else would like to add anything else on this in regards to the societal dimensions?
Yes, I may just comment on Penelope's excellent presentation on the topic. She covered a lot. So I will just focus on the security privacy aspect and also on the control. We do have technology nowadays available to implement decentralized systems with those desired properties of preserving privacy, ensuring integrity, ensuring control, and they mostly rely on cryptographic protocols. And there's a societal aspect on that. There are some trends. There is an old trend in the US on backdooring cryptography. It seems it's reaching Europe also. So we have ongoing discussions on the EU on backdooring cryptography, so allowing state access to cryptography for lawful interception of communication, for example. And that's the same cryptography that can protect us on a decentralized setting, that can create trust on technology, actually trusting math, to make sure that the system is secure and that our data is protected and that we have privacy. And if that goes ahead in the EU or in the US, we are jeopardizing the technology that can be used to protect ourselves. So that's something that it needs a wide discussion on the society regarding if we actually want to, how can we balance the needs of the authorities to intercept communications of potential criminals or terrorists in a lawful way with the needs of a decentralized mechanism for distributing media, social networks, or even other types of communication. So how can we balance that? Or protocols such as e-voting also rely on the same cryptographic primitives that are used for accessing our bank accounts or sending message to our instant message program. So it's all the same technology behind. And if we are thinking about the society to regulate that and to in some way allow government access, privileged government access to this type of cryptography, then we may be jeopardizing some of this evolution. So I think that's a very interesting topic for discussion in the EU. The discussion in the US is already ongoing for more than 20 years. So I think we can also learn a bit from what's happening over there.
Thank you, Nelson.
Yeah, if I may add a few, Scylla, if I may add a few words, about this issue. So I'm looking here at the question again, and the question is phrased like this: are there some societal dimensions that should be taken into account when we design and deploy? And here, the first thing I would like to point to is that there are many societal dimensions that are very different from each other that could intervene, and some of them, and with some of which we might agree, and some of which we might not agree with. Right. Now here we need to be very careful. If I were a citizen of North Korea, right, I would not want the societal dimensions to be built into the decentralized system that the regime would like to offer to me to use, because I knew that it was meant to control me, right? So here, the question is, what societal dimensions are we talking about? And I would like to propose one societal dimension that I hope is universal enough and could be accepted by a large number of people. And I'm very mindful of the fact that there are many people from many countries listening to us here. And this societal dimension is that of transparency. Penelope mentioned it, but I would like to elevate it from one of the factors, probably one of the most important factors that you need to think about when you create a decentralized privacy-first system. And because there is a natural trade-off between transparency and privacy. You see, you can build a very private system where nobody knows anything about nobody, right? And that gives everybody the feeling that they are secure and okay and all that. Bitcoin, be said, right? Well, this system is also completely untransparent, opaque, right? And which makes many of these technologies problematic, right? Bitcoin is used not only by well-intended individuals who want to donate to causes that are persecuted in countries like North Korea, right? They're used by the Russian mafia too. There's a lot of very, very, very dirty money that is being stored, transacted through Bitcoin, right? So the question is, how do we design technologies that allow us to trust, right? And the answer is, by providing a certain amount of transparency. Now, what kind of transparency am I talking about? And the discussion becomes very complicated, and I will not have a solution, but I would like to give you an idea of what we're talking about. Is the same type of transparency that helps us negotiate our legal affairs in most societies that are well run, right? And I'm not talking democratic society, the US society, whatever. I'm just talking a society where people are, happy with, what they get. And these societies are, for example, if you go to a court and if you sue somebody, right? First of all, that, your lawsuit will be taken into account. And but more important, that you're suing the right person, right? And that the person that you sue cannot hide and say it wasn't me because it was my brother, it was my sister, or it was someone else, right? That there's a mechanism of verification of who says what and who did what. Actually, a better example would be contracts, right? The best countries are the countries where if you sign a contract, the contract is recorded and is trustworthy itself. And we know that, the document that records our transaction is verifiable and can be, we can go back to it anytime we want and see it's still there and still works. There are many countries in this world where there are contracts that are not worth the paper on which you've written them on, because the next time you look at them, guess what? They are modified, they are not there, they cannot be found. The judge looks at it, says that which doesn't say and all that, right? So, we need all these transactions that we put in these systems to have this quality of being incontrovertible, but at the same time transparent so that we know who did what. So in that respect, I wish I saw a decentralized system that reveals something about people. And those who go in the direction of saying that the best decentralized systems are the ones that are the most private, I think that they're missing a point.
Thank you, Zorin. And I'm moving, because we have about 12 minutes, we'll move to my next question. And actually, this is related also to a few questions that we have here on the chat, the questions and answers panel, and also I received one similar in regards to that, about real life projects that, you know, they're actually decentralized. Well, the one that we're actually designing, developing, and using at Eunomia. So my question is related to Eunomia. This is a multidisciplinary ongoing EU-funded project that proposes a new paradigm that utilizes information trustworthiness and decentralization. Can you share with us, being members of this consortium, many lessons learned related to your area of expertise? And I will start with Penelope.
Yeah, sure. So just a few words then about Eunomia, so that the audience can also know that it's an EU Innovation Action funded project, and we're developing the first social media environment designed to prioritize trust over likes. Sorin highlighted that at the beginning of our discussion. So Eunomia is powered by the open source decentralized social network Mastodon, and supported by a unique peer-to-peer and blockchain infrastructure. So Eunomia tools support the social media user to assess the trustworthiness of information that is obviously shared through Eunomia. We cannot check information outside the Eunomia environment. Now, it was very clear to us from the very beginning of the project that to develop effective tools, we need to consider the human and societal factors in the process of developing these tools. And we need to recognize that there are differences in the behavior of users of different gender, different age, different political orientation, etc. We adopt a co-design methodology to explore and analyze these factors, and this analysis feeds directly into the development of the tools. And very importantly, and I think I saw a question about that, I mentioned that earlier, that we are conducting an ethical and privacy impact assessment. So we comply with GDPR, but mainly with societal values and rights. And yes, societal values can be cultural, but there are the human rights that we need to respect at all times. So we are trying to develop ethically sustainable tools. We also learned from the very start of our research that people use their gut feeling. That's how they describe it, their gut feeling, beyond anything else, in order to assess the trustworthiness of information. So this gut feeling emerges from their experiences, from their knowledge, from their beliefs. It is very important, no matter if it's right or wrong, it is very important when we develop solutions to recognize how this process of trustworthiness assessment works for people. So in Eunomia, we build on this knowledge, and we developed through a systematic desk-based research information hygiene routine that the user can easily adopt and apply using the Eunomia tools. Through these hygiene routines, we can protect ourselves and our networks. And by information hygiene, we mean the practice of following a daily routine that reduces the risks of acting upon misinformation and share misinformation, and that way contributing to the spread of misinformation. So Eunomia recognizes also the dangers of the user to make this gut feeling an instinct and instinctively trust online information or not, in the same way we like an online information or not. So it's not this we have a trust button instead of a like button to as a nudge for the user to think whether they can trust the information, but this itself can be misused. So in Eunomia, we have features, other features that can empower the user. They're encouraging the user. In a sense, we nudge the user to critically engage with online information before they decide whether they can trust online information or not. And this is, in our opinion, the only useful way to change user behavior and to contribute to their media and information literacy. And consequently, to flatten the spread of misinformation, as we say. So, excuse me, Sorin mentioned that before, that we need to change the scene. We need the paradigm to shift. And in Eunomia, we believe that we need to do it in a meaningful way. Fact checkers go on, they come after the harm has done, in a way. Like, because when you see false information, then in a way you don't forget about them, they stay with you. We want to help the users, to train the users to stay away from the virus of misinformation, if you want these analogies of the coronavirus, because we're talking about infodemic now. So how can we stay healthy, and how can we keep healthy our network and not infected by misinformation that can harm our democracy, our health, our economy? And I think that this information literacy is very important. So as Nelson said before, it's not the tools that do that. The people, with the help of the tools, learn how and what to trust.
Thank you, Penelope. And I will move to Nelson. And Nelson, I think you wanted to answer also a question live.
No, I already answered that
okay.
question, but I can add a bit on from the technology side on what Penelope just talked about Eunomia. So Eunomia uses a federated social media platform. We are actually using Mastodon, but Eunomia is independent from the actual social media that we are using. So we are using Mastodon as a use case for our project, but it's actually independent from the underlying social media, because it's all about the data that is on the social media. The decentralization of Eunomia is supported by a distributed and decentralized peer-to-peer file system, and data access to that, to the data that the control of the access of the data that resides on that file system is enforced through cryptographic primitives that are backed up by blockchain. And blockchain plays an important role here, being the trusted entity to store keys and manage permissions, as well as implement some network governance principles. We also developed in Eunomia an open-ended e-voting protocol, which allows the users to vote on the trustworthiness of posts while preserving their anonymity, their privacy, but still avoiding double voting in a fully decentralized system. So without a single authority that will be responsible for managing who has voted or not and for tallying votes. So this was also an important contribution from Eunomia. I think the main lesson was having a very flexible technological structure that could cope with the diversity and ever-changing requirements that we got during Eunomia project on what are we expecting from the technology. So this keeps changing as users interact with the technology on a very interactive process. And it was very important from the start to have a very flexible technological approach, using some building blocks to provide communication in a secure way, data storage and security privacy, such as confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and while keeping it loose enough so we can adapt to the new requirements. I think that's the main lesson from the technology side.
Thank you, Nelson. And Sorin?
If anyone wants to know what Eunomia is about, I would summarize it to three ideas. A, nobody owns it. Everybody owns it. And we distribute the network effect. You see, when you are on Twitter or Facebook, there's a natural network effect, meaning that you are there because everybody else is there, or you need to reach out to people that are like you. We can do that still with Eunomia and federated sites like it without having it all owned by one company. And I think that most of the people in attendance understand that. The second thing we do, Penelope mentioned it, and I'd like to restate it again, is that we are using a social nudging technology by which we basically encourage you to trust rather than like or respond emotionally. So what we did was to replace the button that would invite you to simply like what you see, which is an invitation to express emotion, to trust, which is to consider what you're doing and make a considered decision. But this is very important. Here, I think we're following Ronald Reagan's great point, when he signed the trust agreement with the Russians to eliminate nuclear missiles. He said, trust, but verify, right? So we include in the system a verification process. So Eunomia invites you to trust, but then it offers you, while offering you at the same time the means to verify that what you're about to trust is trustworthy indeed. Now, this is what Eunomia did. You might do different things in different ways, but I think that these principles are very, very important. Again, decentralization of ownership, trust, and thinking about what you're doing before you respond emotionally, and finally provide means of verification, and maybe in the context of transparency.
Thank you, Sorin. As we have run out of time, actually, just a very short note from all of you in regards to the challenges that lay ahead of us. So just very briefly, please. So Penelope.
Well, very briefly, I think that the challenge entitled, the challenge is the adoption by critical mass, first of all, and a technology that will address ethical and societal concerns that we're trying to address currently.
Thank you, Penelope. And Nelson.
Okay, so I think fostering adoption and network of these types of technologies is one of the open challenges, and the other is keeping the diversity. We should not forget EU motto, united in diversity. So that's what we expect, diversity of technologies that can cooperate to this end.
Thank you, Nelson. And Sorin?
The proof of the pie is in eating it. We would like, as many of you who have attended this talk, to try the decentralized Eunomia node and play with it. Our greatest challenge at this very minute is to convince the 200 individuals who join us to take at least one look at what we have created, because indeed, it's very important to spread the word, but that can only be done experientially. So please help us connect with you by visiting our site in case you haven't done so. And maybe Valentinos or Sula, you should send everybody an email with instructions how to do it.
Of course, yes. And I have already posted also our website in regards to Eunomia. Well, it was a lovely discussion, very interesting one on a very important topic. Thank you all for this discussion, for being with us. It's a pleasure working on this project with all of you all here. And thank you all over the world for joining us this evening again in Cyprus. Bye. And the floor back to Ilias now.
Thank you, Srila. Thank you all. Yes, this has been a very, very interesting discussion. And I would like once again to thank our panelists. Also, a big thank you to you all for your participation. And before closing, we have a number of announcements. As in the case of previous events, all attendees will receive a blockchain verifiable certificate of attendance. Also, we would much appreciate your input to a survey which will be circulated very soon. And the next DLS event is scheduled for the 20th of April, and the topic is the Block Pool Acceleration Program, discussing how SMEs in Europe can deploy blockchain-based applications. Please visit decentralized.com for more information and registration. Once again, thank you very much, and we are looking forward to seeing you in our forthcoming events. Thank you.